everyone. My name is Michael Palermo. I'm with the Developer Relations team at Here. And with me here today is Vidhan. Vidhan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Vidhan and I'm also with Here Technologies and I'm developer evangelist based out of India.
Yes, total opposite sides of the world. I think you're a half an hour ahead of us, like
Yeah.
on the other side of things. So it's nighttime for you, early for us. Our show today is a continuation of the series of AWS Connections IoT, and the title that Vidhan has chosen to present for us is Gateway to the Cloud. So I know it's going to be good. I've seen a sneak preview of what he's going to do. I think this is going to be one of the fun ones. But before we get into that, just a reminder to everybody, we are live. We want you to ask questions, give suggestions, even just say hello, please. We'd like to have as much interaction as possible. We also want to highlight that we'll also have some mods in the chat. You'll see the Here Dev. More than likely, that is Peter, who is in the background producing this show. He might pop in for one reason or another. He's also the one responsible for some of the cool edits that are starting to happen in our environment here on Twitch, so I'm excited about that. And by the way, we want to make sure if you as a Twitch savvy user know how to make clips, we would encourage you, if there's something you want to share, you share that clip and put it into our chat. If it's selected, the powers to be, which is Peter, will grant you VIP status. So very exciting. So right before we get into the topic at hand, Vidhan, the first thing I like to do to just kind of set the tone, make sure we're all on a personal level here and it's not just all business. Have you done anything exciting lately?
Lately, so I was exploring Kafka from the work perspective and Kubernetes. So more of Kafka. So yeah.
And you're doing that for like work related things?
Yeah, I'm planning to create something using Kafka and IoT. So yeah.
So you're spending some of your personal time doing work stuff? Is that what I'm hearing?
A little of personal time, not much. Since the COVID hit, the line has become quite thin, or you can say there's no line now. So things creeps into one another, personal life and professional life. So you can say
Gotcha.
that.
Okay, you're a machine. All right. Hey, by the way, for what it's worth, the only achievement I've had lately is I was able to walk my dog for the first time, because the little puppies, you have to wait until they have all their shots and all that kind of stuff before you could take them out into the real world or public. So, but I guess that doesn't compare to all the techno nerdy stuff that you've been up to lately.
But that's fun.
But it was
For the
fun.
walk for the first time. Yeah.
Peter and I
remember
talked about it before. Peter asked the question, "Hey, did the dog stop a lot?" And the answer is, "How did you know?" Yes, of course. And he's like, "Yeah, that's just what puppies do." So mine has a very strong attention issues, but that's okay. He is a puppy. All right. So with regard to what we are going to be doing today, now again, I've said at the beginning, man, I really like what he is going to do in this episode. I feel like this is a bridging type of an episode. We're going to see a lot of cool tech. But Vidhan, why don't you explain, give us the context for what's going on today.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see it. So what we did in the previous, you can say that episode was we sent the data from IoT device, which is still with me, right? You can see it. So we created Node MCU and we attached a temperature sensor and we generated latitude, longitude data. And we sent it to Raspberry Pi, which is our IoT gateway that you can see on your screen. And we were plotting it. We were storing the data in a CSV file. Now, today what we're going to do is we are going to take it a step further. As the title suggests, that we are going to send it from gateway out, and that is what we're going to do. From that, we're going to plot our map on the IoT Gateway, because IoT Gateway is mostly used for analytics and doing some heavy processing of the data and then filtering data and sending to the cloud. So that is what we're going to do. We're simply going to utilize the power of IoT Gateway and see what it can do, but on a very basic level.
Cool. Now, maybe I'm going to ask this of Peter, if he can switch us back to where our videos are larger again, because Vidhan, you just kind of like flashed this thing in front of you, and then it went away. And I think that's when we were in small circle mode. So can you please slowly show us this device so I know it's just not a piece of cardboard you painted?
No, it's just a device. So, it's
okay.
a Node MCU, and we have LM35 temperature
Gotcha.
sensor.
Okay. This isn't the thing that you almost lit on fire, is it?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay. Just wanting to make sure. Okay. All right. So what do you want to do now, Vidhan?
Okay, so I'm going to walk you through a bit of a code that we did previously, and then we are going to jump to what we are supposed to do today. Can you see my screen coding? Okay, so what you're seeing here, Michael, is the Arduino Ide, right, that we use for coding the microcontrollers. And here we have created a simple code, right? And this code, what it's doing is it's sending the data, temperature data from LM35, latitude, longitude, that we are generating here. And then it is sending it to a gateway, that is Raspberry Pi. So this code is running. You can see that the data that is going looks like this. So this is temperature, this is latitude, this is longitude. So now, what does it look like on the gateway, please?
Just a quick question. So just to make sure, that Arduino code that you just showed, that's running where?
It's running on my PC, on Windows operating system.
Okay. It's now running on your PC. And the code that we see now on the screen, where is it running?
It's on Raspberry Pi.
Gotcha.
So this is your Raspberry Pi desktop.
Okay.
So what I have done here is I have started the server, and the command for this is CGI HTTP server, and the server is active now. It is serving at port number 8000, and you can see the data coming in from this IP address, and this is the IP address of our Node MCU, or you can see that IoT device, right? And this is the data which is coming in. Temp is temperature. I'm going to expand this, and then you have latitude and longitude. So all this data is coming in, and if you read the code that we built previously, we are simply storing the data into a CSV file called iot.csv. Let me show you that file.
And while you're opening that up, I guess the question I would have is, as far as roles are concerned, the Raspberry Pi device, what is that compared to the code that's running on your PC? Is the code on your PC the gateway, or what is it?
So basically, the code that I've shown you on my PC is for IoT device. So Michael, let me explain. Basically, what we are doing here is this code is being burned or is being written on this microcontroller, right? So if I remove this microcontroller and if I attach a power supply to it, say a battery, what is going to happen? It is basically going to do the same task. It's going to send the data to this particular address. The address is the address of our Raspberry Pi, which is 192.168.29.175. You can see it here. I popped one of the connection. Let me connect it. Yeah. So this is happening here. Just to show you how this code looks and how to write it, I've shown it on PC. Now, this device is perfectly working, and now we are moving to the IoT Gateway part. And here we were storing these data on our Raspberry Pi. Now, what would you want to do on Raspberry Pi, Michael, if you get this data?
Well, I'm assuming you'd want to share it somehow.
Exactly. That is what we are going to do. Apart from sharing, Michael, apart from sharing, Michael, what we can do is we can also perform a bit of analysis on the data. Because the data which is coming in, you don't want to send the complete data to the cloud. You would want to clean that data and send a smaller amount of data to the cloud, right? Okay. So we are not going to do that, right? We are not going to perform heavy data analytics. We're simply going to perform something else, which is more related to the location data that we are capturing. So what we're going to do is, first, we are going to change this code. Okay, and we are going to attach, or we're going to write a Flask application. And this Flask application, what's going to do is, we have a condition here that if the temperature is more than 40 degree or less than 17 degree Celsius, it's going to reroute or show us a map or the location of the device, or a human who's carrying that device, or a house, or anything, any asset that you have that you're monitoring on a map. And from there, you can do anything with the view. You can get the routing instructions to reach there. You can have the geofencing. You can do all other kind of stuff. So let's write that kind of code here. So I'm going to simply copy and paste a few part of the code. Let me try full screening it. Okay. Now, what you're seeing here is the code that I have already written. So I'm going to copy a few of the parts here, like importing the Flask library. Now, you would want to install the library. So the command that you would want to run is pip install Flask. So that's a simple command that you would want to run. So I'm going to open another one of this terminal. So the command that you would want to run is pip install Flask. I have already done that, so I don't need to do it, but just to show it to you that how it's going to look like. Once you have it, you're going to import two things here, Flask and render template. Now let's go deep into the Flask one. Now what Flask does, Michael, is basically it's a micro web framework. So whenever you want to send, or you want to open a web page, you want to create a website or something like that using Python, either you use Django or you use Flask. So I'm going with Flask. So we have an if statement here. I'm going to keep it simple, right? Because there's going to be extreme condition that we are showing here. Let me show you a simple condition which we can achieve right now if the temperature is more than 20 degrees Celsius, because the temperature that we're getting is quite good, right? About 20 at least. Now, so what we're going to do is...
Can I ask a question on that? So again, so you are referring to the code that we're looking at right now. This would be what you would regard as gateway code. Is that right? And so
exactly,
we can have conditional statements and processing on the gateway before we even share it, is what you're showing us. Okay.
Exactly. So we can perform kind of for data analytics. So you can see that this is one of the kind of data analytics where we are sending data or showing data on a map for our person who is monitoring the gateway. Okay. So I'm going to create a Flask application. I'm going to copy and paste this code also, just to save the time. Let me grab the code of Flask. Okay, so Flask is a very simple code to write, and it works amazingly. You don't have to have much of the knowledge, right? You simply can copy and paste the complete thing from the Flask website. Okay, so this is a few lines of code that we're using to run this map.html. Now, what we're doing here is we are routing it to a location, right? And we have a function, and we are rendering a template. Now, the template rendering is done using a Jinja 2 template here. And we are opening an HTML called map.html, which I have already created. And we are passing on 3 data from our data.py file, or the code that we have right now. And these are your latitude, longitude, and temperature to our map.html. Okay, so these 3 things are what we're going to pass to our map.html. Now, how does our map.html looks like? First of all, when you are working with Flask, you have to keep in mind that whenever you are storing map.html or any HTML file, you store it in a folder called templates. So that is what I have done. I've stored this file in templates folder. So that is one of the basic thing we do in Flask. Okay. Now let's see the code for this. Now this code what it does is it opens a map and it shows an icon as a location where this particular asset is. And when you click on it, it will pop up the temperature of that asset, right? Okay, so let me run this and then I'm going to show you how it looks like. Okay. If we have that file, yes, we have. So the code I'm going to run is data.py. Okay, just give me a sec here. Okay, I'm going to keep it same and let's see if it does not throw an error. Okay.
Can we see what that error message looks like?
So the error message says that the data that you're getting has to be, or the data type should be a string or a number. And what we are showing is a float. So this value is actually a string, right? Because the data that we are sending from our source is basically a string.
Right.
Let me do one thing. Let me remove the float here, right? Because I think it's taking it as a normal value. Let's try that out. Previously, it was working fine. Let me check it again. So there are a few things that I'll change the code, right? I'm simply going to remove the float, although I'm 100% sure that this data is string. Let me try it again. Okay, it's saying address already in use. Okay, I'm going to close this. And I'm going to open another instance. Okay, so it is already working.
We have a comment from Shruti that said you were making the temp of float on line 26.
Basically, the thing that I did was I was already running this code. I didn't have to run it by myself, right? So this code is running now. Let me copy this. So basically, the data.py code, it is not supposed to be run by us. It is by our device, right? Okay, so I'm going to open something here. Just a sec, let me open the browser. Now you can see the map. I just have to put the address of localhost. Now, what it's going to show is basically a location where you have your asset. And when you click on it, it shows you the temperature, and the temperature is 31.52 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that is what we got. Now, how is it showing the map, right? That is one of the questions that you should have, right? Okay, so for that, what we have done is we have included the JavaScript library of here technologies, right? Here maps. And we have that here. Apart from that, we scroll down, right? We are simply grabbing the latitude, longitude, and temperature, and then we got our JavaScript API key that you can fetch from developer portal. And if you scroll down, we are simply showing it on a certain location, right? As a central location, and we're getting it at zoom level 14. If you scroll down, then we are selecting icons. Now, these icon images are also supposed to be in a folder called static. So I have kept these images in a static folder. If you scroll down, I have added an event listener, which when clicked is basically showing the temp value which we are fetching from our Flask. Okay, so this is how it is showing us the code. Now, the condition that we have provided to it, let's check that condition again. Okay, so the code that was running previously was not running on this condition. So let me change all these again. We are going to have it as a float only, and the conditions are going to be same. Now, given the current temperature, this condition is not going to match, right? These are the extreme condition. If the temperature goes below 17 or above 40, it's going to work. So I'm going to run this again.
Do you need a closing parentheses around that P? Look at your code again. Val temp, close parentheses after the P.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so we got it here. Now let me run this again. Now you can see that the data is coming in and Flask won't get activated because the condition won't get satisfied, right? So you'll only see the data. Okay, let me make it more clear. Okay. Now, so the data is coming in. Now, you've got the data, right? Okay, and you are showing it on a map, right? You are showing it as an icon. You can change the icon, right? I've selected the home icon. You can have any icon that you want. It's up to you. You can include any kind of data that you want. It's up to you. For example, I'm sending temperature and it belonging to data. You can have all sort of data. It's up to you. After that, what would you do? What would you want to do, right? Now, once you have the data on Raspberry Pi, you perform some of the data analytics. You would want to send this data after analysis to the cloud, right? That is what you would want to do, right, Michael?
I agree. Although I have a question for you.
Please.
So when you generated that map, you continuously get all these feeds. I'm assuming right now that the map is not updated each time there's a new piece. Is that true or false?
Yeah, it is not updated continuously.
Okay.
Just to keep the code simple, right, and doable right now, I simply kept it as a single piece of information without updating it. If you want to update it, you can use Ajax, right? Or you can go with WebSocket. You can have a socket IO library and you can simply use a socket and you can keep on refreshing it. The reason is because Flask is the server, right? And we are already running an HTTP server, right? So that will be a troublesome doing the thing at the same time. Either you use a threading here and where you run a parallel thread where you're doing it, or you use socket or you use Ajax, right?
In a way though, if you're going where I think you're going, once you have all this data that this is kind of like just to prove it in a local, area. But once you share this out to the cloud, and depending on how you do it, you could create a map that, based on wherever you're sending this to the cloud, could auto update. I'm not saying that's how this demo ends, but I'm just saying that would be a possibility.
We can do a lot of things here. And that is one of the very important possibility, right, that you're talking about. We can show the movement of the machine if you're talking about a supply chain, if you're talking about a vehicle moving through a city, if you're talking about a device which is in a stationary position, you can have that location, right? Or you talk about hundreds and thousands of devices which are on the move, that could be another scenario. You talk about hundreds and thousands of devices which are stationary, that could be another scenario, right? So the reason that you would want to use a map here is because let's say that you have such devices all over the world, or say in a certain area, and you got the data on your gateway or on your cloud that, okay, this device is malfunctioning, then what would you want to do? You would want, as a company who created this device or this IoT scenario, you would want to send somebody to treat it as soon as possible, right? Because after sales service is one of the most important thing in IoT right now, apart from security. So that way, maps work amazingly here, right? And you can add a routing instructions there, and you can simply get the routing instruction, and you can get the estimated time of arrival to your asset.
Cool. So, hey, Vidhan, just heads up. So we're about halfway through. Is this about the time when you're going to start to segue into how we go gateway to the cloud?
Exactly. That is what I'm going to show now. Now, there are two things you can do here, right? I want to send the data to the cloud, and the data is coming in at real time, right, from the IoT device. So what you can do is either you can simply forward this real-time data to the cloud. You can use something like multiprocessing. You can use pipes or queues in Python, right? Or what I'll suggest is that since we are storing data in a CSV file, right, and you can perform some data analytics, and then from that CSV file, you can take out the data and you can send it to the cloud, right? So it's depend on your use case. So for now, we are assuming that we have the data stored on our CSV file, in our CSV file. And after this, what we're going to do is we're going to take the data from that CSV file and send it over to the cloud. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to create a separate file for doing that. And we're going to call it data publisher. Now, if you check the CSV file, right? So this is our CSV file, which I think I showed you all, right? So these are the data that we have got. Now, we would want to read that CSV file. That is one thing. Let's do that then. Okay, I have already created this code, but let me write it down. So either we can use pandas as a library, right? And that works very well with reading all types of file, or you can use a simple CSV file importer. I can have import CSV, and then I can open that particular file where it is with open and the location of the file. And I can name it as CSV file, right? Okay, now the location of this file and the name of this file is iot.csv, and the location of this file is this. Okay, so this is our file, and this is the location of our file. So we are going to open this file and we're going to use it or name it as CSV_file, right? And we're going to create CSV read. And what the CSV is going to do? It's going to read. It's going to read what? Your CSV file.
And while you're typing that, what's the significance of the little r before the path in the open?
Okay, so when you're providing a path of any file in Python between the double quotes, between the quotes, right? Many times it takes it as a string. It does not take it as an address. Oh. So what I'm telling Python is that this is a raw file, or this is a raw string. So don't take it as a string. It's a raw. Either I can use this, or I can use a double / to tell Python that this is an address.
Gotcha.
Okay, we have to use a delimiter.
I get a Python education each time I watch you code, so thank you.
You're welcome. So what we're going to do is we are simply go to this file, right? We are going to read this file row by row. So we are going to have a for loop, which is basically going to iterate to our CSV file, right? Let's print it. Right, let me run this. Let's go to the folder where we have the file. Let's run data publisher. And you can see that we were able to read that file. Okay, so we got our file. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, so that is one thing. So we got our file. Next thing that we need to do is basically we need to structure it in a way that we can send it over, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to copy a few of the parts, which I have already created. So this part is basically we are creating a payload, right? And this payload is going to get created using JSON. So we'll have to do this also, because you're sending data to the cloud, you prefer to send it in a format. Now to check, you can check what kind of data you are getting here.
And again, I'm just assuming that both CSV and JSON are just libraries that are normally available with Python?
So these are your inbuilt libraries. You don't have to install it. You don't have to download it. You simply have to call it. When you download Python setup, right, these libraries come with it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, we are able to read the CSV. Next thing that is left is sending this data to the cloud, right? So what you need to do is we need to create an IoT device on the cloud, right? Let me do that quickly. So you have to go to aws.amazon.com, right? You have to log in to your console and you have to create a device, or you have to create basically the virtual device. You have to create the certificate. You have to create the policy and all those things, right? So I'm going to go a service or product called AWS IoT, and we can do it one by one, but that is going to take a lot of time. So I'm going to do it in a single flow. And for that, we have called onboard get started. Simply go to onboard device, click on get started, and it will give you a lot of options: register device, download the connection kit, and all those things. Right? You can select your platform which you want to use. But to be honest, these are not required, but still you'll get the option. Right? You can download the connection kit. You can name your thing. Right? Name it as AWS or here AWS. And you can click next, and you'll see an interesting thing here. Right? It creates few of the things which are required for secure communication. See, when you talk about cloud, when you talk about IoT device communicating with the cloud, you talk about security. Because security is one of the major concerns in IoT today's world. And most of the product in IoT, or most of the things that has been created in IoT, fail because of the security. So to make sure that everything is secured, we are going to have a secure communication between our gateway and our cloud. And that is what we're going to do. Apart from that, we have a policy which we need to edit because it's quite confusing. Let's not get into it. Okay. And apart from that, you'll see that you have a certificate and private key, and you get certificate, you get private key. You also have to have a root CS certificate. And these three together, they work in a, you can say that for encryption, for encrypting the data that is flowing from your gateway to the cloud and vice versa. So I have already created this, downloaded this, so I'm not going to go into it. I'm simply going to fetch those files that I created. And
I just want to mention while you're getting those things, listen, you've been with me on my episodes of supply chain, and the amount of work to get secure connections in JavaScript is very hard to do with AWS IoT. So what you just showed actually looked like a much more simplified approach. I mean, literally, once you onboard it, it just creates all the cert files and the things that you need. I even noticed that it gave you a sample, hey, here's a little script for you to start sending messages. So I think that's very cool. That's a lot easier than doing it in client-side JavaScript, let me tell you.
Let me show you the code in the Python. Then you will be amazed with the number of lines of code and the simplicity of the methods which are being used here. Okay, so I have fetched 3 or I think 4 files to a certificate, or you can say that private key, private and public key, right? One certificate, which is a server certificate, and one root CS certificate, that is your certificate authority, or the third party, which is going to act here. Now, let's edit the code. Now,
so a question came up, and actually I was thinking this as I saw it being asked in the chat. Shrudi's asking, so where do you get that root CA certificate from?
Okay, so first of all, your root CA certificate is publicly available. Right? That is one of the most interesting thing about this. And when you download the folder, right, the connection kit, which we were not able to do it, you'll have a start.sh file if you're talking about Linux, and start.ps1 file, that is PowerShell file if you're talking about Windows. If I open this text editor, if you see this, this is the location of root CA certificate. Right? And I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to open this in the browser so that you can all see how it looks like. So this is your root CA certificate.
Okay,
and
so
this is from where we got it.
It's the same one for all these AWS communications. Is that the point? Okay. The other things are the things related to your security. So yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad that Shruti asked that question.
So see, root certificate is same for everyone, right, Shruti? And what varies is these files. So your iotthing.cert.10, iotthing.key, iotthing.public.key. These are the files that you cannot share with others. Okay. Otherwise, your device, your communication will be completely compromised. Okay. Now, coming back to the code, I'm going to copy some more code here now. Okay. So we have to import few of the files, which I'll show you how to do it. And I'm going to copy a few parts of the code, and I'm going to paste it here. Now, this part of the code is one, I have imported Power MQTT. right? You have it in JavaScript also, Michael, right? The PAHO MQTT library.
I do. And by the way, I don't know what this means, but from Shruti, duck, duck, go rocks.
Exactly. Like if you want to open the Onion websites, you can use DuckDuckGo, and it's amazing actually. Okay. So one thing that you would want to do is you want to import PAHO MQTT. So that is one thing that I would like to show you. You can have pip install PAHO-MQTT. And that's it. You got the MQTT library. I already have it, of course. And after that, you have to have SSL, that is secure security layer. I think TLS SSL1 SSL. And I'm putting time just for a delay, giving it a delay. Now, Michael, the lines of code that you're looking at here on connect, on message, right? And creating a client for communication for publisher and subscribing, and then again, instantiating the methods, right? These are the standard lines of code that you have in MQTT communication using Python, okay? And apart from that, for secure communication, there are a few of the information that you need to provide. You need to provide the AWS host address. Now, this is the address of your broker, basically. See, the communication that we are having is called MQTT communication, and it works on publish-subscribe architecture. And when we talk about publish-subscribe architecture, you have publishers, you have subscribers, and everybody is sending data to a broker. So you need to have an address to the broker, which you are communicating to, and you have a dedicated broker, and AWS creates it for you. So we have this location of the dedicated broker, and you can find the information of this broker on your screen on AWS IoT under settings. If you go on settings, if you see this endpoint, this is the address of your broker, okay? So let it be like this, and let's get back to the code. And then we have a port number, 8883. So when you talk about MQTT, it works on two port number, 1883, that is for unsecured communication, and works on 8883 for secured communication. That is what we are doing right now. And after that, we are providing a client ID, thing name, which I already have created. I'll show it to you. CA path, that is your root CA certificate that I showed you on browser. And these are my private key and certificate, which I cannot share with anyone. After that, we are simply starting, or we can say that we are making a secured communication with AWS IoT server or broker or gateway, right? And this line is for having a secure communication for authentication, authorization to start communication with the server, right? We are passing all these values, okay? And the protocol that we are using, TLS 1.2, okay? I think latest one is TLS 1.3, but here we are using 1.2. So you can change it, although the latest MQTT was also 5.0, but we are using 3.1. So you can change that too. That we are simply connecting with the server. And Michael, you can see, I think had a word about this, that this is so easy to call to connect with the server, right? We simply have to call a method called connect. We have to provide the address of our broker, and we have to put the port number on which you want to have communication with the broker, and keep a lifetime that is 60
seconds. What does that actually mean?
And it has to be in
so I am in the JavaScript code that I use with this same PAHO client. I don't pass that in. Maybe it's an option I've just never used, but does it mean that if there's no activity for 1 minute that the connection stops?
Exactly, that is what it means. Okay. See, basically, all the publisher and subscriber, they have to communicate with the server. They have to make server believe that they are alive, right? And if they are not sending data in after 60 seconds of wait, then server will assume that they are not alive. There's something wrong on the end with regards to network, and it will trigger a different, you can say that logic, which will tell all the devices who has subscribed to this particular event, which is happening right now, that this device is not working.
Cool.
Okay. So next, what we need to do, we simply need to publish it. The publishing code, okay, mqttc.publish. That is the method for publishing it. Now, the topic name that we want to use, you can use any topic name, right? I'm going to keep it simple, IoT. The data that I want to send is called payload, and quality of service that I want to use is 0, right? So you have three quality of service, 0, 1, 2. 0 means fire and forget. That is, I'm sending data and I don't care if it reaches you or not. When I say you, I'm talking about the AWS IoT broker. Okay. And after that, I would want to have sleep time of 1 second to give it breathing space, you can say that, the complete code. Yeah, so that is our complete code. Now, let me show you on the AWS part what we are talking about. If you go to the manage, if you go to the things, then here AWS is what I had created. This is a thing that I already created for showing you all, right? And if you go to the security, you'll see that we already have certificate for it, right? And if you go to the policies, you'll see that it has policy. Now, policy is something which I like a lot of AWS because it limits to which topic or which, you can say that devices can communicate to your AWS IoT server. And the policy that we have created is quite open, right? It should not be like this. So if you are planning to create something regarding this, you should limit, you should tell what topic to publish, what topic not to publish. You can limit it with editing this file, okay? Now let's go and see what is happening here. I'm going to click on test, right? And I'm going to start this code, keeping my fingers crossed that it works. Okay.
So if I'm understanding correctly, what you're doing right now is now that we have all of these things that we've interconnected, we should be able to see the effects of what you're doing locally with that device eventually show up or appear somewhere in the AWS cloud.
Exactly. So we got connection result 0. That means that everything is fine, right? Okay, that means that our connection with the cloud AWS IoT endpoint is perfect. Now let's see if the data is appearing on our AWS IoT console. Let's subscribe to it. Okay, so we are getting the data here now. Okay, so
that is very, for those that might not get it, this is very exciting. I mean, if I guess if you scroll down, will we start to see more and more appear, or no, we're seeing them appear right now every single second?
Yeah, so these are the latest data that you're getting on top of the screen.
Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. Now that we know that we have the streaming information coming, then conceivably where we go next, of course, where you go next is up to you in next episode, but I'm saying this is kind of fun because this could be something that you could use a lot of cool mapping stuff to really showcase all this IoT stuff. So I'm excited you did this.
So we have just hit the tip of the iceberg when we talk about AWS IoT. There are a lot of things you can do, and I'll try to explore a few of them in the next episode, right? Okay, like you can have the visualization, you can have the machine learning, you can have the data analytics and all those things.
That's great. You know what I loved about this episode, everything that you covered, was also showing the items that sometimes get buried, like a lot of times it's security related stuff. So I'm glad that you showed us the policy, showed us why you would want to change that, understand how simple it was to actually generate the things you need in order to do the MQTT communications with AWS. You solved the mystery for me, and I'm sure Shruti about the root CA. Didn't realize that was like a public thing, so that's kind of cool. So I think this is very exciting. Can you give us any hint as to what we're going to see in the next episode?
So next, we are going to explore cloud a bit more, right? I'll be able to see how to perform basic analytics on the cloud. And after that, we are going to simply send the data to a user application, right? So we'll have a subscriber, which will be subscribing to the data, which is appearing here on your screen.
Hey, and we're getting a request from someone you may or may not know named Shruti. AWS triggers, please.
AWS triggers. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check it out. If I can get it, if I can do it, I'll show it.
Okay. Well, listen, this is great. Everyone watching, just a reminder that these episodes are available as a past broadcast on Twitch, and in about a week are going to be available on YouTube. So our YouTube, our amazing producer Peter already put the link in the chat for where you can find past episodes and where you'll find this one in about a week or so. If you have any questions whatsoever about any of the technologies we've talked about here or some of our mapping or location services, feel free to join our Slack so that we can build that community and also answer some of those technical questions. Hey, we're also on Twitter, so you could probably discern, I think, yeah, it's at the top. We're all of our aliases like the here dev on Twitter. Also, I don't think are you on Twitter, Vidhan?
Yeah, yes, I
You
am.
are. You'll need to put your in the chat, or someone's going to need to eventually put yours, because I forgot what yours was.
No worries.
Next episode, I'm going to have that one ready to go because I forgot what your alias. I
So
no, I
it
don't
is
know it.
at the rate
So
Bosley Vidhan.
I'm hearing from Peter. He's like, share it. I'm like, I don't remember it. But Vidhan, you know it. You should know it. What? Just visually or verbally say it.
So it's at the rate Bosley Vidhan. So it might be hard to find to spell it out, but yeah, it is Bosley Vidhan.
Okay. Oh, good, Shruti. She's so good.
Thank
Okay,
you,
so I think
Shruti.
all of our Twitter aliases are now in the chat, which is great. As far as like a shameless plug, I would like to say, so obviously we're 2 weeks from today, we're going to have the next episode of in this IoT series. Tomorrow, starting at a new time at 10 a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to brave a home office hours all by myself. So I'm looking forward to that. And a little twist to it, it's going to be a lot more open based on some great raids we've been doing with our Twitch stream lately, getting to see how the Twitch universe is operating. So I'm going to try to employ some of these techniques that I've seen other great people that are on Twitch do. So that's for tomorrow. And then a week from today, we will have the AWS connection supply chain. This is going to be episode
Yay.
4, and that is going to be on the consumer side. So I'm really excited to share that as well. So please, if you haven't already, follow our channel so that you can get notifications for upcoming things, whether it's office hours, whether it's our waypoints or AWS connections or Azure connections. They're all going to be streamed right here on Twitch. So anything else that you want to comment on or save it on before we say goodbye?
Yeah, so keep watching, keep learning, and watch out for AWS supply chain because it's quite interesting. I am intrigued to watch it, what Michael builds. And yeah, stay safe.
Very good. And I guess I'm checking in with my producer here. Are we going to also be rating anything at the end of this episode? Okay, so it sounds like Red Hat. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. Stay tuned. We're going to rate another channel.